Yeah. Why do you think these methods are effective?
Yeah, I think that they're effective. I think that we can do more for bilingual students, whether that's getting more resources so we can have more visuals or just having people in the class to make the visuals and monitor the students through the process of learning the language. But I do think that they're effective.
Cool. And what do you think about translanguaging? What's your opinion on it?
I think there's a lot of things. I think if you can speak full Spanish to do that, but translanguaging, as you're learning another language and you've already acquired a lot of another language, it can help your brain code switch better from language to language and understand the new language you're trying to learn. But I do try to encourage kids to speak full Spanish or full English, but as they're learning, it makes sense to mesh them together. Because I'm learning Spanish, so I mesh Spanish and English together. So I assume that's what the kids do when they're learning English.
So, in your personal experience, like you've been using it also.
Yeah, that's why I learned Spanish. I do trans language because if I know how to say I know or like yo say like I know this, I'll say half of it in Spanish, half of it in English, so I can still acquire the Spanish language while still using what I know in English, and it helps me learn Spanish. So I assume it helps them learn English to mix it.
Awesome. And are you able to do this in the classroom? Like, are there any restrictions on you about using this?
I don't know enough Spanish, so my pronunciation isn't as great, and I want to improve that. So the limitations is not knowing the language, but I do see kids using it, and so it is used in the class with me and the kids. My kids learning English trans language all the time. They don't say full sentences in English yet, only like 3 or 4.
Right, and it's like helpful for them. And then one last thing, or maybe two things. How do you go about teaching pronunciation? Is it something that's like really important to you right now, or?
I think pronunciation is important, but accent is something that I think should always stay. As my parents learned English, they still kept their accent, so there are some things that they don't pronounce the phonetically correct way in English, but it still gets across well. So as a teacher, I try to make the pronunciations well with the vowels, but if some of the consonants aren't perfect because of the way they speak another language, I think it's just a case per case thing. I do take pronunciation very important because of phonemes and phonetics and stuff. But when it comes to accents and sometimes rolling your R's, I don't take that as heavily.
Right.
Yeah, because that's their culture, and I want them to still speak like they come from another country, you know, and not to speak like they're watching something on an American television show.
Right. And how do you teach them pronunciation? Like, what do you do?
Motions.
Okay.
Motions, because it's not going to click. So I make a motion for every phonetic, like every letter has a motion, so they can differentiate the different letters, because it's hard to learn all the letters in Spanish and English all in the same grade.
So you focus on phonemes,
and I focus the most on vowel differentiation.
Okay. Yeah.
That's probably my main thing.
Yeah, with the Spanish and English, I feel like that's definitely.
Because that's what's confusing, because like I is E, pronounced E, and so like that's hard for them, so I'll focus specifically on I a lot in small group.
Right.
Because that's a big difference, and they need to know that to speak in English.
Right.
But like R's, sometimes they still kind of roll their R's when they say a word in English, and it's a case by case. I'll focus on that later.
Because it doesn't necessarily like impede your comprehension of what they're saying. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
I'm trying to think of an example. Like rabbit. They'll go like
rabbit. Rabbit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I let that rock.